Alrighty, so welcome everybody to day 9 of the 30-day Traders Induction here on the channel. Today we're going to be covering the trading instruments. So primarily this is going to be covering the different markets and the different sectors that one can get involved with throughout their trading career. Now, first up, what is a trading instrument? A trading instrument is a financial asset or contract such as stocks or forex that can be bought or sold in the financial markets. That's from ChatGPT. I think it covered it up quite well. So it's used for various purposes, including speculation, hedging against risk, income generation, and diversifying an investment portfolio. So just taking the 2 points of hedging against risk as well as diversifying an investment portfolio. When we're already involved in maybe other business ventures, maybe we have a restaurant or maybe we have property, sometimes it's wise to use the capital from those ventures and then hedge and diversify it in other areas of the markets so that we're not overexposed in one general sector. We can split that risk and mitigate the downsides by moving our money around in different places. But maybe from someone that doesn't have an outside venture, we can use it to generate some different income through the form of speculation as maybe an initial business plan like myself. So a few types of trading instruments. We've got equities, which are the stocks. We have forex, which is the foreign exchange or the cross-currency trading. We have commodities. We have indices. Going back to commodities, these are like gold, silver, the agricultural products, for example. Indices like the S&P 500, which are the collections. We'll dive through these in a few more slides, but just as a rough overview. Bonds and cryptocurrencies. I'm sure we all know what that is. Now, moving on to equities, but before we do actually jump over to equities, I just want to say that there isn't a right or wrong answer into which trading instrument someone should get involved with. I have my personal preferences, and so does everybody else. There's benefits and there's drawbacks to each and every one of them, so it's just about finding what works for you. So in my next few slides, I'm hoping to give a little bit of outline and overview on what each of them are, some of the pros and some of the negatives towards each of them, and then allow you the time to identify which might be best for yourself. Alrighty, so starting off with equities, these are shares of ownership within a company. So for example, you have the Nike company, and then underneath the Nike company you have the different shares that people can purchase for small amounts of ownership within the company themselves. So big whales out there will go buy a large amount of these shares, and they can actually start to affect and influence the day, maybe not the day-to-day, but the longer-term movements of a company in terms of their economic and business ventures. Whereas for most of us and most traders, we're only trading a little bit of the company at each time, and we're just trying to make money on the small fluctuations of the valuations of the stock themselves. So these this environment in equities and the stock specifically have the potential for high returns. You only need to look at Nvidia, for example, to see that if you had bought that a couple of years ago, you'd be doing very, very, very well. Now with that potential for high returns comes the company specific risks. And this is because you're buying the shares of a specific stock, a specific company, which means that the news and all the happenings of all the other different companies are not going to necessarily affect the individual stock that you're playing. So you kind of got to really be sure that which company you're buying into doesn't have any massive things that might go negative on the horizons, because it could affect it quite significantly, being that it's a company specific stock that you've purchased. And from a technical trader's point of view, also the time frames and the time zones may not necessarily be the best. They're a little bit slower because they're only open during the New York session. So for someone living over in Asia, for example, in Australia like myself, the New York session doesn't open until roughly midnight, going into the later hours of the evening. So that midnight to early morning window is the New York session over here, which isn't really conducive of the lifestyle that I want to live. So I don't strictly and wholly trade on the stock market because of the time zone. So just something else to factor in. Moving over to forex, this is trading the currency pairs. For example, the euro to the US dollar, or the Aussie dollar to the Japanese yen, for example. You're trading the strengthening and the weakening of each of the currencies relative to each other, and that's how you get the exchange rates. And we're playing the different exchange rates. It's a very liquid market. On average, I think it was in 2019, it hit its peak of $6.6 trillion per day moving through the financial markets alone, which is quite large. It's a lot of money, which means the liquidity and the depth of the market is very big, which makes it a little harder for it to be subjected to massive manipulation spikes and huge black swan events, which do happen. These things do happen, and they shouldn't be ignored, but it's a lot harder for the forex market to be moved relative to maybe a smaller cap crypto. So with high liquidity is better execution as well, depending on the broker. And I also find that forex of all the other markets has always been a little bit more stable. It's open 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, 5 days each week. So there's all the time in the world, and it gives you the weekends off to go and do your reviews, etc. So the 24/5, 5 days on, 2 days off offers a nice larger window relative to maybe the stock market that is only open for a few hours per day, Monday to Friday. Moving on to commodities. These are the physical assets like gold, oil, and agricultural products. So gold, silver, corn, soybeans, bamboo, anything. OJ, anything you think of, it's probably got a market. You just got to find the broker to trade it. And that's what the commodities are. They're the tangible assets in the real world. And because they're in their own kind of bracket, if you will, they're often a good hedge against inflation. So when interest rates are going up and the economy might be looking a bit shaky, people move over to the commodities to offload their risk and play that sector instead. So commodities are also very subjected to the geopolitical risks, which increases the price volatility. So especially during wars and times of uncertainty in the world, different agricultural products can be affected in different ways. Maybe there's a big fire on one of the big coffee farms, that can really affect the price points. But they also have a lot more of a real world correlation than the other markets. So you can see these massive supply chain problems affecting different markets in that way. So they're very good for the fundamental analysis to bring in their, I don't want to say common sense in the way of being smarter or not being so smart, but common sense of okay, if this happens, this is more likely to happen. And in the commodities markets, it's a little bit easier to predict from a real world perspective. Now moving on to indices, these are the basket of stocks representing a particular market sector. For example, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and the Dow. So instead of buying just the individual stock like Nike or Amazon, these are then grouped into what's called an indice. It's a basket, if you will, and that tracks a big sector. So for example, the Nasdaq is the tech sector. So this is where all of the major tech players are all grouped into, and that index tracks the overall average of it. So it just alleviates that risk of having the company specific stock. So they're good for diversification, and that lowers the individual stock risk, as I just mentioned. However, they are subjected to the market-wide risks. So, for example, if you're in the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq, and there is a company-specific event that occurs, if it's a leading stock, it can bring the whole sector into maybe not into question, but into a little bit of volatility or uncertainty. So, there's benefits and drawbacks to each of them. Indices tend to be a lot more stable and steady. They don't usually do anything too crazy, but they do have the potential here and there for the black swan events and the crazy volatility to occur. But I would just say on a lower level, not so much, but it still happens and still needs to be aware of. And one other thing to note is that the contract sizing can be quite large. So when we're trading the position size, the position trading, where we're actually buying the spot holdings or the full contracts, some brokers will require you to purchase a minimum of one contract in increments of one, but it's listed at maybe $5,000-$6,000. So you've got to buy them in big chunks. And then also when you're trading in the futures or the actual futures trading in the contracts for difference, sometimes the contract sizing can also be a little bit of a hurdle if you've got a smaller account, because then again, with the increments going up, it can be a bit tricky to not risk too much if the account is too small. So we can cover that in a later video, but the indices and the contract sizing can be something to take into account. And then cryptocurrencies finally. So we all know this as things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, XRP, for example. These are the digital currencies that are in their own new market that had just kind of come onto the scenes in the last 10 years or so. And we all know it for the huge volatility and meme coins. So like I said, high volatility, which means there is the potential for high returns, but at the same time, with high returns also comes high losses as a potential. So it's a very volatile market purely because it is very unregulated, and it's also a little bit more of a shallow market, so it's very prone to manipulation, especially from the bigger players moving the markets wherever they want to go, and that's reflected through the price spikes and all the different wiki and crazy behavior that goes on. It's a 24/7 market, so it'll always keep you on your toes. It's very good if you like to look at things on a daily basis. It just keeps the weeks going and going and going. And unfortunately, one of the downsides to this environment is the regulatory risks. Like I said, there is no regulation, so anything can happen. Market uncertainty, it's very economically driven. If something were to happen that hits the news relating to crypto, it can send prices going crazy. And there's also the security risks as well, because these wallets that you're holding your cash in, I don't want to say they're very easy to hack into, but they're very traceable, and they're also very prone to being hacked, like exchanges specifically. There's been countless exchanges go under and all the funds have been lost, and because they're not regulated, once that money's gone, chances are you're never going to see it again. Also, you need to be very careful when transferring between wallets, because if you do one number differently and it goes to the wrong place, you'll never get it back. So some factors to consider now with regards to selecting which instruments you'd like to trade for yourself is market volatility. Is your risk tolerance able to stomach the higher risks, or are you a bit more of a conservative person, so you want to look for a market that's not so volatile? Liquidity and depth of market. So especially for the bigger players with larger capital, it's probably not the best idea to be trading a thin market where your executions will be all over the place with regards to the spreads, etc. Time horizons. Are you an active trader? Do you want to be on the ball every day, or you want to be a passive trader and you just want to buy and hold the stock market for the longer term? You know, it's a balance between what your lifestyle is, the risk tolerance, and what it is that you like to do. Trading costs as well is a big one, maybe a bit more broker specific, but also the different instruments come with different fees. It would be a combination between the two, but commissions, swaps, and spreads. And some tips for getting started. So first up, lifestyle assessment. Getting clear with your current lifestyle and trading in alignment with trading an instrument that is in line with the type of trading strategy that you would like to be involved with. So in the last video, we spoke about the trading strategies and the time horizons. For example, position trading, swing trading, day trading, micro trading. Reflected now into the trading instruments, it's probably not the best idea to scalp and micro trade the cryptocurrency market, because it's just so volatile and it's also very thin. So there's different variations that would work best for different people. That I tend to, as a general rule of thumb, like to leave the crypto, the stock market, and the indices to the position and the swing trading side of things. And then in the forex, where it's a much deeper market, we can go into the day trading and the micro trading, the scalping. But with regards specifically to the lifestyle assessment, that's where you would need to find out, okay, are you someone that's working a job but you don't have time to do this, or do you have all the time in the world and you're okay to be on the charts? So factor all of those in and just find something that works. So general rule of thumb as well, if you're working a full 9-to-5 job, that day trading, looking for a couple of positions throughout the week, but checking the markets on a daily basis. Forex, day trading, full-time job, that's kind of the middle center point that I've been at throughout my whole trading journey myself. Some demo accounts as well, very good. Try out a few of the different instruments and see which markets and see which ones work for you. open up a demo account and actually execute a few positions and see what the contract sizing is like, see what the brokers are like, because they're all very different throughout the different markets. So find one that you're comfortable with, open a few demo accounts, do some test runs, and then move on. Education and research. Don't take all of what I've been said as the only information that you use to then make a decision. Go and do some research, go and educate yourself on what each of the markets are, what's happening in them at the moment, before stepping in, especially with your own capital. And finally, the safety of capital. Different sectors and different instruments which have different brokers to execute within and execute from have different levels of security when it comes to holding the capital. So for example, a forex broker is more safe to hold your capital than a cryptocurrency wallet, but then above a forex broker, for example, it might be safer to position hold your indices and your longer term stocks. So levels of security and levels of safety relative to where the capital is being held in the broker. Some are better than others. Do your research and go find the regulated and the trusted brokers. But also in terms of the markets that you're actually trading within, of the safety of capital. If you're in a position, you want to make sure that you're in a market that you're comfortable with, that you don't necessarily know that nothing's going to happen, but try and mitigate the downside risk. You don't want to be holding 100% of your capital in Bitcoin, which could just drop 50% in a week. So be careful with the capital and where you're putting it. Maybe it's also best to partition some of it in a bank account and put a little bit of it in a brokerage account, and then up the risk to relate to the whole partition. So things of that nature. Now, in summary, we've gone over some of the main types of trading instruments. I've just chosen a few, not going over all of them, just a few of the primary main ones that I'm most familiar with. We've had a conversation about the factors to consider when choosing which instruments that you'd like to trade, and then a couple of tips just to get started and just try and keep things in as safe a manner as possible. So up next is day 10, which is paper trading and broker selection. So we're going to go through that tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.